What's good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. I'm super pumped. We've got a very dynamic guest. I love everything that he's about. He is a dad, first and foremost, a super dad. He's been dating his wife for 21 years. Oh my God, that's beautiful. He's a lifestyle business mentor and high performance life coach. You know I love my coaches. He's also an author and a TEDx speaker. Dai, thank you for joining us today. Can you please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Oh, geez. Well, first of all, thank you, Deanna. I love just the theme of your show, period. You know, life is what it all matters. It's the only thing that matters, right? Like, really, at the end of the day, living our best life is often a choice. And you know, you're asking me to introduce myself and give you some background. I mean, I've come to understand that change, as resistant as I may be at times, I can't do anything about it. It's going to happen whether I like it or not. Things never seem to stay the same. And so my life's seen a lot of changes. I've just learned to embrace change rather than fight it so much. And that's sort of my choice as it relates to my life. And, you know, I'm 44 years young now. Life has changed up. Yay. Are you 44? Wait,
Yes.
Oh, good one. I love it. Well, I'm my 45th birthday will be in November. Okay. And right now, you know, I'm back in Vancouver. I was living in Bali the last 2.5 years with my family. We decided that we wanted to be a full-time family. So, you know, if I think about the biggest change I've experienced, and this is why it's kind of a lengthy answer to your very simple question, right. Things in my world's changed a lot in the last 6 years, specifically leaving a career of 17 years to venture down a whole new path, but something that felt right for myself, for my family. And so I'm still in that active discovery, literally daily, of rediscovering or discovering new things about myself, about the thing that I call life. And so the things I do today, I just chase my passions, you know, but also along the way, just try to help a lot of people. And that's really who I am. People will get to know me a bit better, obviously, as we continue our conversation, but I'm just stoked to be here.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love your energy and I love what you're about. I mean, I think that we are all put, I mean, in some capacity, we are all put on this earth to serve others and serve them in a way that's positive, that's inspiring, you know, and there's a lot of people out there that have lost their way. That's why I love talking to coaches like yourself and, you know, people that are doing dynamic things. You're an author, a TEDx speaker that, you know, you're leaving your legacy behind in a very positive way. And it's so important. It's so important. And that's the whole reason why I started this podcast.
I was going to say, isn't it interesting how, well, I think back to Joseph Campbell, and, you know, he coined that term, the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And when we think about the hero's journey, I mean, we're all on our own hero's journey, but along the way, we meet incredible people. You know, he referred to it as a guru in his teachings, and that sort of perfect world idea of what a hero's journey looks like. But we meet people that influence us in a positive way. And ultimately, it just helps us shift perspective, sometimes only a fraction of a degree, but that's all we need to now see that obstacle in front of us a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And just enough so we maybe all of a sudden see a little path that gets around it or circumvents the challenge, so it's not as challenging as we once believed it to be. And we get through the challenges.
We do.
Very rarely unscathed. Like we come through it changed. But there's this deep desire in all of us, or at least the way that I've experienced, and I've seen other people experience it, especially when I hear them talk about it or write about it. It's we leave that moment of change feeling so empowered, but also very responsible.
Yeah.
Responsible now with this new knowledge, this wisdom, if you will, that we've learned through the experience. Now go back and help others with similar experiences, similar challenges, similar growth opportunities. And I know that's happened to me a few times in my life, but it's awesome. Yeah. I can imagine it fires you up to just have these conversations, to share the content that you do, you know?
It does. I actually, so you talk about people that have gone through hardships and how like they just had to change, like that, a slight change. So I just wrapped a show with a former NFL football player. He was an offensive lineman with the Rams, the Oilers, and the Colts.
Cool. Wow.
His story, it was super cool. He said that, you know, he was very poor academically. He had a terrible stutter, and he had got into college, and he had always wanted to play in the NFL, but he got into college and he still was just very poor, couldn't, you know, like very low GPA. and he told his mom he was going to quit, and his mom said no. And so he said he came back the next year, his second year, and he like completely made that shift. And now he's a former NFL football player, and he's a motivational speaker. And he's telling his story, so like being so vulnerable and authentic about what he where he started off and how he was destined to fail. But he made a decision, and he shifted that, that made that little shift in his mind. Like, you know what? I don't care if they're laughing at me. I don't care what they have to say. I'm deciding that I'm going to win.
Yes. Yes.
I know, right?
Well, I think we all, at some point in our life, I truly believe this, and I feel for people if they don't get to this point, but I still have much hope that they will. But we get to that point where we realize that enough's enough, and we do almost feel like, and I know I've often described it as, I remember hitting rock bottom, and really when I think back on it, it actually felt more like the rock was on me, and sometimes it was just a matter of somebody else being able to just say, hey, you know what, it's okay. I've been there too.
Yeah.
And you're going to be okay. They may not have provided me any solution or ideas, but they just that little human interaction of saying, you know what, me too. And you're going to be okay. It's amazing what happens when we have that small, it seems at the time, not like a big deal. Yeah. But I think back to my own changes, and it was often the people that were around me or that I allowed into my life, those positive influences. Like, it's sort of like you mentioned that he felt like, people may have been laughing, but it was like, I don't care anymore. Yeah. But I bet you there was people around him as well that were rallying for him, sure, wanting to see him win. And I often think there was people around me, and they may not have intimated or articulated it to me in any, real cohesive way, but I know that when the conversation did come around, they would express their pride or how proud they were that I was able to make those changes. Or I'd hear people say, hey, super inspiring to see you make that change with your family. And it's like, wow, that's great. Well, I'm glad that you feel inspired by it, but what do you want to do? Right. Because that's just my life. But what about your life? If it inspires you to do something different in your life, that's when I start to celebrate. I'm like, great, this is my life. This is what I'm doing. But what do you want to be doing with yours? Right. That's the stuff that gets me excited.
Yeah, because you've gotten over the hurdles. You've gone through. You went through the lows, and you got yourself out of it. And I feel like for people like you, my dynamic guests, we've all been through something that was life changing or life affirming or something that like you said, rock bottom or the rocks on top of you, that you knew that you are going to get through it. You're going to get over it. You're going to barrel through it. And that's just part of your journey. And along with that experience comes wisdom. And I feel like it almost brings like some peace to your soul that, moving forward, everything you do is just going to be okay. You might have bad days, but the only way is up, right?
That's right. That's right. Seriously. It's, and we're often the ones that limit us, and I almost, sometimes I feel like when we have these types of conversations, I always want to be mindful of the people that might be going through a challenge right now, because when you're in it and you're dealing with it, you can't see 3 feet in front of you. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like being underwater and they've just kicked up the sand and now everything's cloudy and you're going through it. You don't know which way's left, which way's right, which way's up, which way's down. And I think back on my own biggest challenges, when you're in that moment, it is very paralyzing. It's hard to have confidence on any action in our life when we're feeling unclear. And I always like to let people know, starting from a place of where you can seek clarity is a great place to begin anything. So, we know we get to a place where we're like, I need to make some changes. I know I do, because I'm not as happy as I could be. My life doesn't have as much joy. And to be honest, I don't feel fulfilled in my life. Like, that's where I got a couple times in my life, and it can be scary when you get there, but then it's a matter of creating the space to just say, well, what do I want? What do I want more of in my life? What do I want less of in my life? But actually give ourselves a space to answer the question, right? Not just rhetorical sort of ho-hum, well, that's a neat question, and then on with the day. Like, actually taking the time to be aware and to let it sit in. And discover an answer, or at least start doing things to help uncover whatever that path may be that's in front of us that we just can't see is there yet,
I've learned just to follow my heart. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I mean, most times it's good. You know, like I went through a period of time where I had no clarity, like what you're talking about. And it was, like you said, a series of uncovering and doing the work and trying to figure out, like, okay, what kind of person do I want to be? Where am I headed? What, you know, like asking myself all those questions. And it's very, you feel very lost when you don't feel like you're clear, you know. But if you actually set your intention on figuring out what that is, instead of just going through the motions, you're gonna find your answer. You really are. And so anybody that's going through that out there that's listening, you know, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that are out there experiencing that too, and we've been through it. And if you keep doing the work, or find a coach like Dai and have someone like him, or have him help you get through that, you know, finding the path to where you need to go. I'm gonna take a quick commercial break. Support for Label Free Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Thank you, gentlemen, for your business. We love it. We have an exclusive offer for my listeners, 20% off plus free shipping with the code labelfree20 at manscaped.com.
I got to say just one thing real quick.
Yeah.
It's like I was meant to be on the show with you today, and that being the commercial break, only because I am a huge proponent of manscaping, like full meal deal. Like I wax everything, you know, like everything. I am. I've always been known as that guy in my circles of friends, you know, that I'm a big fan of it, and I've lived that way for over 10 years, and I couldn't ever imagine not having that. So it's really, I just think isn't that interesting that I'm being interviewed as you're saying that message? I'm like, I'm all for manscaping. Manscaping is good.
I'm all about it too. So that must be why you've been dating your wife for 21 years.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure she appreciates that too.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I'll tell you, it is so nice, guys. If you're out there and you're probably laughing at it, you're thinking, yeah, right, better you than me. Well, no, trust me, you do it once, you'll never want to go back.
Like it's all about like keeping, like maintaining. Like I feel like when you take care of that, from male or female, you're just, or however you like are, you know, identifying whatever you're identifying with, it's just taking care of yourself and having respect for your body. I mean, I don't know. That's a whole other subject, but
yeah, it is. Well, I love it on the self-care side of things, right? Like, it is. I have a self-care day every week, and you know, I call it my mental health / self-care day. Like every Friday, that's just me. It's Dai Day, right? Like my day. It's whatever I want to do, whatever I feel I need to do. It's what I do. And you know, if I have a haircut or I'm going to get manscaped, like whatever, it's just my day. You know, and I think everybody should have a day, at least one day a week, where it's just focused self-care, whatever that looks like
for me.
Or you know, it could be, well, I mean, there's everyday rituals, but I mean like that dedicated day that's just your day to do whatever you feel like you want to do that works for your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual, your psychological health, like even your financial health, like just really focusing on the things we can do to generate more health in our life, you know. And I find that ever since I started, you know, living into that intention of every Friday is my day for that, it's been awesome. Like just awesome. Like some of the shifts I've experienced, you know. So
if you're, well, I know most of my audience is men. But 53% of you guys are male out there. So did you hear that? So take care of yourself, especially for your woman, because she's gonna appreciate that. With that being said, can you tell us what it means to be dating your wife for 21 years?
Well, I appreciate what you said earlier, Deanna. You know, that idea that you're trusting your own instincts, your gut, right? You're trusting what your heart's telling you, you know, and there's lots of different ways of explaining that, but it's really that idea of recognizing there's a natural feeling there that sometimes we can be very dismissive of, where it's just like, okay, well, I don't know what that is. I don't understand it. So I'm just going to ignore it. And I'll try to force logic and reason to get my way through whatever it is. But sometimes I truly believe we have this intuition in us that sometimes we have to lean into and be very intentional around. And I find that language is very much connected in all those ways, right? The way we say things, the way we think about things, the language that we use to talk to ourselves or communicate with others, it is the foundation upon which a lot of interactions start or continue, you know, or in a lot of cases end. And what I found was, you know, my wife and I, we wanted to have intention, you know, after being together for over 20 years, you know, like relationships, they experience change, and a whole lot of it. It's not like we were when we were in our early 20s, first meeting each other, right? Where we've built a life together.
Yeah.
We both have different desires, different passions, but we also have shared desires and shared passions, as well as shared goals, you know, as far as family, life, career, all that stuff. So we've learned how to sort of complement what it is we each want, while also support each other in going after what we each want individually.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like this kind of a wave. It comes in and it moves out, it comes in, it moves out. And that's sort of how our relationship is. But our time that's spent together, we want to set an intention that we're always trying to date each other. So, you know, that period when you're first discovering something about somebody, you're first getting to know them, and it's like, can't wait to get off work or to see them next, talk to them next. Like, it's just, there's that bubbly phase. And why does that ever have to go away? I mean, I
agree.
And so having intention, even how do we describe our relationship? We're dating each other. We're happily married and dating still, you know, like, it's just intention behind our relationship. And, you know, we've gone through lots of challenges over our 21 years together, you know, lots and lots and lots, but we've always managed to get through them and come out the other side, and things have always improved, you know. But I'll tell you, when you're going through it, like I said earlier, it's tough. You're going to be pushed back on a lot. And sometimes we feel it might be easier just to quit, start over, than it is to actually work through it. And fortunately for me, I have a partner in life that she will not quit until she's exhausted every possible option.
That's amazing.
And I honestly, I give her all the props, because I was very much the person, and I had that model in my life where I would just quit. I would quit. Okay, that didn't really work out, so I'll just quit, you know. But there was no quitting on our relationship. And that's the thing that I always loved about her, and do continue to love about my wife, Christy, is that she's very much of that mindset, you know? So anyways, that's the piece. Anybody that's out there that you're married, you start referring to your relationship. You're dating your wife, you're dating your husband, you know, and it gets people going, huh?
Yeah.
What do you mean? And
but I love it though.
Intention. It's just intention.
I think that it's some really good advice, because I mean, marriage, divorce is so high these days. That if people actually, I was married, you know, I'm talk about it very openly on all my shows. If it comes up, you know, my husband passed away 5 years ago.
I'm so sorry.
He was very sick for a long time. I was with him for 17 years. So when he passed, it was almost half of my life. But he was a controlling man. So it wasn't the best relationship, but we complemented each other very well in a lot of different areas. But I think that had we applied that type of attitude or intention in our relationship, things may have been a little bit differently in the dynamic of our relationship, but it wouldn't have really changed the outcome, because, you know, he struggled with some things. So, but I think that's very healthy. If I ever, I don't know if I will, but if I ever get married again, I would want to adopt that kind of attitude, that mindset about my husband, because I think we should just continue to date each other for the rest of our lives. You're going to be with someone, because relationships are hard. They are hard. It's not easy. If you decide you're going to be with somebody, you're going to go through it all, and it's not easy. Not at all. So congrats to you. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But you have there's so much we can talk about. Oh my gosh, you're going to have to come back for like a follow-up or something. But
sounds great.
You have done. You're a TEDx speaker. Can you tell us about that, and like what you talk about and all that good stuff?
Sure. Well, I won't go into all the super details, because I'll leave people to a little bit of mystique, you know, so people want to go and look at the TED Talk, because I think the message in the actual talk itself is so much more profound when you see it from start to finish. But let me give you sort of some bullet points here. You know, I talk about vulnerability being a human quality, not about being a female quality, not about being a male quality, not being just a gender associated quality. It is a human quality. Right. And it was something that I avoided a lot in my life, you know, but largely due to the fact that it was never role modeled. Like, vulnerability was always seen as a weakness. I understood it as a weakness. I was like, you don't show your feelings, you don't show your emotions, you don't talk about that stuff. Like, that is not what you do as a man. And that was role modeled by a lot of the people in my life that I grew up with, including my father, and he was a great man, very loving in his own way. But, it wasn't something that we would emote, right? It wasn't something that we would speak openly about. And in fact, we had a relationship that we wouldn't often talk about our emotions ever. And if we did, it was super quick, in passing, never really addressed. And so as I went into my 20s and even into my 30s, I didn't know how to connect with other men. In fact, I looked at most men as competition. I was always worried about being honest or open with them, because that level of vulnerability, it might get used against me. I might say something, they might turn around and use it or share it with somebody else. And, I just didn't understand. And yet I really wanted, I felt I needed deeper connection with men. I felt like there was something missing in my life, and so the talk sort of dives into a bit of that, but more specifically, it talks about my wife and a question she asked me just over 11 years ago that literally shaped the trajectory of the last 10 years that we've lived. Our life is very different today because of one singular question that she asked. And she asked me, Dai, are you being the type of man you'd want your daughters to marry?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, it is, isn't it? It's a hard one to wrestle with as a father, as someone at that time that abused alcohol and narcotics. I was, my way of dealing with stress, dealing with anxiety, dealing with the unhappiness in my life. Even though I had many reasons to celebrate my life, I was always focused on wanting more. And if I couldn't achieve more, couldn't fully develop that ego, wanted to be perceived as the guy, the dude, the man, right? Looking for accolades. I look at everything I was chasing in my 20s and then into my early 30s. And the more I chased things, the further I felt I got away from it. That created this void. And I filled that void, or at least I avoided it and my preference was alcohol. I could easily just have a couple drinks and, okay, the problem doesn't seem so bad. I'll worry about that tomorrow. And then tomorrow, of course, the problem's still there. And, it's okay, I have a few drinks, I'll worry about it again tomorrow. And it became this habit.
Sure.
Until my wife wasn't willing to have any more of that. Yeah. Our daughters were under the ages of 6 at the time, 4 and 6 actually. And she was thinking about that relationship, us potentially parting ways. It was presented at that time. And then that question came up in that conversation. And that was when I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm not being that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're forced to deal with that stuff. Well, from my own personal experience in the past and my late husband, we self-soothe, and we turn to things that, like he was a big steroid addict. And even though that's not necessarily like a high, like a narcotic, or you get buzzed like a drink, it's a different kind of emotional and mental high for people that do that. And, I basically watched him kill himself, and no, he did. He needed his 3rd kidney transplant. He was still injecting, even when I was administering dialysis. And I would have, and he had 4 daughters. Yeah. He had 4 daughters from a previous marriage. And I'd ask him, like, you're being so selfish. So why are you doing this? Don't you want to be here for your daughters? At the time his one daughter was pregnant, and, and I'm like, and what about me? You're going to leave me by myself? Like, and it just didn't matter, because that he had that need, whatever, like injecting himself, it just was something he couldn't stop. And so, it's really sad. So I think he was just a very unhappy person overall, and I know that, I don't think anybody really realized how sick he was until his life. He ended up in the hospital for the last 30 days. So, So when you turn to stuff like that, it's definitely self-soothing. You're not, I'm glad that you're able to like face those demons and turn everything around. And now you're living this beautiful life, living in Bali and then now in Vancouver and all this good stuff. You're doing some amazing things. You have a book too. So before we wrap things up, can you tell us about your book and where people can find it?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, but I also just wanted to quickly acknowledge you. I know that what you experience, it's, I mean, it's not anything to celebrate, right? Like it's, I mean, I guess it depends. Like I think about my biggest challenges in life and now I can celebrate them.
Sure.
I celebrate what I learned, what I experienced in that moment and how it influenced where I am today, you know, but it doesn't make it any easier, you know, and I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for sharing that and being willing to share that. Cause that's not easy. But I love it that you're role modeling what's possible. I found with vulnerability, you know, getting around other men and all of a sudden another man sharing first, being open and vulnerable, it gave me permission to do the same.
Yeah.
It showed me that, oh, okay, this is okay. This is safe. This is, you know, it's going to be all right. That, you know, and sometimes that's just what it takes. It takes somebody else to go first.
Sure.
To give us all the confidence and just
I think
makes
being
us
vulnerable is a
reassured.
strength. You know, I mean,
I see that too. Now I didn't though.
yeah.
You know, and have you always thought of it as a strength for yourself?
No, I mean, I had an abusive family home. My dad was very abusive. I'm a human trafficking victim, survivor.
Wow.
And during that time, I did a lot of drugs and all that stuff. I had abusive boyfriends. So, but then during that time, I was very hard and like tough and like, oh, you know, I'll fight you and all this stuff. But now, as I've gone through some of these experiences and I've come out on the other side of it, and I had to decide, you know, and I actually had this conversation, you know, a couple of episodes ago. I had to decide who I wanted to be moving forward. Like I could either wallow in my own shit, you know, and keep repeating and getting involved and doing this and doing that, or I could decide to just be a better person, and have gratitude. And my whole goal every day is to wake up and just have joy in my heart and just be peaceful. And I just want to move forward and I want to be an example. You know, I have a niece and nephew, and I'm still hopeful that maybe, God willing, I'll be able to have babies, because I always did, but my husband was too sick. You know, and I just had to decide who I wanted to be. And I've found that as I've been being more vulnerable and sharing those things, it's like the weight has come off, you know, like I'm able to walk a little bit lighter and more happy. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and thank you for sharing that. And I'm gonna have to go back in some of your past episodes so I can get the full story. So
the full story. I can bits and pieces here and there.
Wow, there we go. I'll just have to keep collecting those little pieces, you know. And you know, my book was sort of one of those things that became very, very clear for me once I took away the alcohol. And I mean, for me, alcohol was crutches, you know, and I don't use the term addiction. I don't use any of that because I still don't, I question the use of that term, at least how it related to my life, because it was always a choice. I was fully aware of my decisions, you know, and I never felt powerless to it. I preferred alcohol over everything else in my life. I valued it greater than my own happiness at times, you know, and because it gave me a moment of happiness when I would drink, right? Like in the moment, I could forget about all the stress and I could be happy and numb, right? And when I started to do my life again, my true happiness without any substances, I was able to start prioritizing certain decisions and choices and actions. Ultimately, writing a book was something that came to the forefront. I'd always wanted to write one, but I never felt like I was in a place where I could, where I really felt like, you know, I could really capture the exercise of creating a space to write something like that. And you know, it was a few years after, you know, just starting to do all that inner work, realizing who do I really want to be? Well, let go of the idea of who that was, and now just start living as that person, doing the things that person would do. And I identified writing a book as one of those things that I wanted to do. And the book is based on a lot of the experiences I've accumulated over 20 years of being in the health and wellness space, you know, and because I used to see people struggling all the time with how to get healthy, how to live a lifestyle where health is the foundation. You know, and I'm not talking just about the physical health. I'm talking about the emotional, the spiritual, the psychological health. And so I wrote a book called The Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. It's a mouthful, I know, but it's really a personal manifesto, and it gives people a roadmap to optimize 30 minutes a day to improve their body, their mind, and their spirit. and it involves daily movement, physical movement for their body. It also involves some mindful meditation to really work out the spirit.
Yeah.
And then there's some very focused personal development time, you know, and this is what you comprise 30 minutes every day, non-negotiable for your self-care, right? I always tell this to people, the only way to do this program is you need to have 30 minutes a day that's non-negotiable for you alone.
Yeah.
And people often ask, they're like, oh, wow, that sounds like a lot. Like, it's the least that you deserve,
Exactly.
you know, and if you don't make it a priority for you, who's going to do it for you? And you know, I have yet to find a job where they're like, we're going to pay you to work out. You know, like we're going to pay you to be healthy. We're going to pay you to meditate. I have yet to find anything like that.
Yeah.
Of course, if there's anybody listening that has a job like that, hey, I'm
yeah, me
here.
too. I'm in.
You know, it's like, so we have to recognize that because of that, we have to have complete ownership on that ourselves.
Yeah.
And create the space to be healthy, because at the end of the day, you can't blame anybody else for that. You know, like, and when you do, it's just, it never makes you feel very good. You know, I used to blame my finger. I was morbidly obese as a teenager. Trust me, I blamed everybody. Everybody it was their fault, not my own, right? And yeah, so there's lots of things.
Oh my gosh, well, yeah, I'm gonna have you come back for another episode. But where can people find you? Where can you please drop by your links, and I'll definitely put them in the description of the episode.
Sure. You know, the good thing about having a unique name, Deanna, is that I'm pretty easy to find on social. Like, if you can spell my name, you'll find me. Dai is a Welsh name, D-A-I. And Manuel is a Portuguese name. So yeah, I know Wales as well as Portugal. So you got a bit of a mix here. And as I say, I'm Canadian. So there you go. So Dai Manuel, but I'm most active on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Those are the three platforms I tend to hang my virtual hat on the most. So I always say, reach out to me there, drop me a message. You get me. I am like an army of one. So I often tell people, if you reach out, just take note, I'll get back to you, and it will be me getting back to you, but it might be a couple days. Anyways, that's all I got. And I absolutely love what you're doing, Deanna. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm absolutely honored, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you again.
Hell yeah, we've got a lot more to talk about. The health and wellness definitely is. I'm very passionate about myself, and there's so much more. But yeah, we'll be figuring that out. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, follow, share, all that good stuff. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.